Thank you everyone so much for coming. We are really excited to have you here. Today we have CBIZ with a topic of emotional intelligence, and Hailey Rachel will start presenting in just a minute, and my co-director Ala will make an announcement for our AA members first.
Hi everyone, my name is Ala Sargsyan and I'm a director of Wednesday meetings with Mariana. And I have a couple of reminders. The first one, please join us on Friday, February 26th. AA and SFA will host a meeting from 5 to 6 p.m. with Michael Patterson, where he will be sharing about his path to success and what it's like working at Disney. Don't forget to sign up for mock interviews happening this February 27th, 9 to 3 p.m. It's a good opportunity to practice your interview skills and get feedback from professionals already in your field. This is our last week of table sitting. Don't hesitate to stop by. Reminder for next Monday, March 1st. We will have Sindre Levak from 12 to 1 presenting on the importance of networking in the accounting industry. Lastly, keep an eye out for our weekly newsletter for updates and events. Follow us on Instagram at CSUN to get reminders and take a look at our YouTube site for our podcast. We've got some really interesting topics. Thank you so much. And Hailey, okay. You want to start?
Great. Yeah. Also, I love that you guys have like YouTube and podcasts. I love how involved you guys are. Definitely a lot of great resources available to students. Well, welcome everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I'm here with a fellow awesome CBIZ audit associate, but we're here to represent, kind of CBIZ and just give you a little perspective on just kind of who we are. We'll give a little plug about CBIZ in the beginning, and then go on to the actual topic of, like we mentioned, of emotional intelligence in the workplace and how that kind of plays a factor in, wherever you are working. And it doesn't always just apply to the workplace, but even to school and in other areas of your life as well. But I do want to preface that we love recruiting at CSUN. We hire a lot of CSUN students. A lot of CSUN students are happy to work with us. And so it's definitely exciting to be here and to talk to you guys a little bit more. We completely understand that the recruiting process is, it's a process in itself, and I'm sure you guys are all very tired. I'm sure you guys have, you did a lot with Meet the Firms, and then you have school and work and now recruiting. There's a lot going on. And so it's hard to always know the type of firm that you necessarily want to invest that time in getting to know. So we really appreciate you spending time today just to get to know us a little bit better, to hear our topic. And then of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the end. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. Okay. And so like I mentioned before, our overall topic is going to be emotional intelligence in the workplace. And I'll just have us briefly introduce ourselves. So again, my name is Hailey Peltz. I'm a campus recruiter with CBIZ. I've been here for about 2 years now, and I do primarily sit out of the Los Angeles office, but I do help to support all of our California locations. I'll kind of touch on it in a second, but we do have 9 California locations. And so if, even though we have an LA location, if you're interested in kind of going to any of our other ones, we also have that available as well. And then Rachel, do you want to also introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel. I am an audit associate in the LA office, and I graduated in 2019 from UCLA, and I've been with the firm since then. So it's been about 1.5 years, and I love it here.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. So like I mentioned, we're going to give a little plug about CBIZ, just in case you're not really sure who we are entirely. So when you look at us from just like a large scale, CBIZ overall is considered a professional services firm. So what that really means is we're kind of like a one-stop shop for employer needs. And basically we try to offer as many service lines as possible for our clients. And so you'll see on the screen that we are actually divided into two main sides of our business. On one end, we have our benefits and insurance side. So, you know, they might do HR consulting or retirement plan consulting, really anything has to do with like employee benefits. We have that side of CBIZ. On the other side, which is a little more relevant to you guys, is our financial services side. And so on that end, that's where you're going to find our tax group, our audit group. We have a growing forensic accounting group. We also have other specialty advisory services as well. We are considered a national firm, a national mid-sized firm, and we have, and we're also considered a top 10 accounting provider nationally. We do have over 100 offices across the nation, and like I mentioned, we have 9 in California. And so we're always growing. That's actually kind of the business model of how we grow. We tend to acquire different firms, and so that's how we're continuing to expand. We also have on the slide that we've won over 85 different workplace awards, and I don't try to like say that too much as like a bragging right, but it more just kind of speaks to our culture, because a lot of times these awards are won based on employee feedback that's unbiased, it's anonymous, so we don't tell anyone what to say, and so we definitely try to make it as you know, unbiased as possible, so that we truly feel like we can earn those awards. And so that's kind of just like an overall glance of us. So when you think about us in terms of other firms, you know, why CBIZ, what makes us special? So like I mentioned, we are more than just an accounting firm. We offer multiple different service lines, and we also offer that opportunity where, you know, like let's say you try out a service line and you realize it's not for you, you may have that potential to, you know, to shift service lines. And that's something that is a little bit more flexible. As a national firm, we also come with national resources. We have like national level training. We have, so we might, if you come on full time, we might send you off to like a national level training in like Orlando or Kansas City. It really does change kind of year to year. This is of course in a non-pandemic year. But even though we have all these national resources and like those pretty robust resources, a lot of our offices actually kind of feel a little more local, and our office size can really range from maybe small to like medium-sized office locations. I'll kind of pick on our LA office in a second, but even our LA office, there's about like 75 people in that office. And so it's a really nice size because it's not too large where you're just going to feel like you're lost in the crowd and just another number, but it's also not too small either. It's just kind of that right happy medium. Our staffing model, you know, we really have that firm belief that if you're putting in the hard work, it's going to be recognized. Because if you think about maybe like in kind of more traditional companies, if you're looking to be promoted, you're usually waiting for someone to either retire or maybe they move to another position, or something like that. But for us, we don't have that same model. It's if you have like the ability and you have the readiness, we will promote you. And we have fast-tracked people to like senior, for example. And so we definitely do it by the work that you put in. We also offer a lot of client variety. You'll notice when other firms kind of talk about, you know, who their clients are, it can really range. Some might have like a very specific client type that they work with. Others have maybe like a more broad range. We definitely fall into that camp where you might experience many different types of clients, depending especially on the location that you're at. So maybe in our LA office, you might see more real estate clients, entertainment clients, consumer products, really a broad range. And we mainly do that just so that you do get that exposure factor, so that you can see the needs and see how different industries work. And then if you do want to specialize, you do have that option as you move forward in your career. Let's say you're just a real estate person, you're like, go real estate, that's my thing. We might then push real estate clients for you as you kind of move up in your career. But we definitely have that philosophy of we want you to start as well-rounded as possible as you move up. And then that kind of goes hand in hand with like the exposure piece, where let's say you are in like the audit area, for example, because we work on mid-sized clients, the work that you're doing, you can really see how it fits into the overall engagement. And so it's not like you're so specialized that you don't really understand how it fits into the overall process. And you also work in like small teams. It could be anywhere from like 2 to 4 people on your engagement team. And I'm sure Rachel could speak to that if anyone does have other questions. And then on the tax side, you also get a lot of exposure to different types of tax returns, whether it might be individuals, corporations, estates, and trusts. You really get a broad range of exposure to many different types of returns. So again, if you do choose to specialize, that's something that you already have that knowledge base on. And then I did note too that we have many different California locations. We kind of refer to ourselves as Golden State because to put it very simply, and it's much more complicated than this, but all of our offices are part of the same business unit, kind of like where the money almost goes to the same pot of money. It's much more complicated than that, but that's very simple terms. And so the advantage of that too is that you might also work with other locations. So maybe you're sitting in LA, but you help out with like a San Diego biotech client as well. And so it's definitely nice exposure to be able to work with other offices too. So life at CBIZ LA, and feel free, Rachel, if you have anything to add here too, but like I mentioned, it's a nice like small to medium sized office. There's about 75 people total in the office, and we do serve a broad range of industries. There's different networking opportunities, as well as community service events and volunteering. Of course, all these pictures were taken, not this year because these were all pre-COVID, but it really shows that there's a really great morale in the office. And I know whenever I ask kind of our professionals why you came to CBIZ, a lot of them say because of the people, but also the exposure factor as well. But these are just some examples of things that we've done. And even this was like a wine and paint night that we did, that all the proceeds went to one of the charities that we support. And so definitely a lot of great opportunities to network and really build those connections. As far as just the recruitment process goes overall, we do attend several events during the spring and fall. So feel free to come see us at any point. I know Meet the Firms is already passed, but I think it's good that you all are here and now coming to this presentation to learn a little bit more. We are currently seeking different opportunities during the spring, or we're recruiting for them in the spring. So one of our only full-time positions is our audit associate position to start in fall of 2021. And this is with our LA office. We also have a summer 2022 audit and tax internship. This is definitely one of our more popular internships where, I think it's hard when earlier and earlier you're getting asked to make a decision, do you want audit or tax? And so with this internship, you get exposure to both. And so you start either in audit or tax, you spend a few weeks in that service line, and then halfway through the internship, you switch and you experience the other one. And so it's great if you're not really sure what you want to do, or if you kind of know, and this almost you want to confirm that and just kind of get exposure to the other side. So that one is definitely one of our popular ones. And then we also have an audit internship for next spring. And so if you are team audit and audit is the only way that you want to go and you just want to experience an audit, that's totally cool too. We have an internship for that. And so for this one, you're going to be really heavy in the client work, especially because it'll be during busy season. So it's really a lot of great client work experience during that. And then we also have a summer leadership program. This is primarily open to people graduating in December 2022 through May 2023. But our summer leadership program, which we call our Career Academy, it's just a great way to get a little more exposure to just like our office culture, learn more about public accounting in general from the CBIZ perspective. You get to learn directly from professionals. You get to sit on like an associate panel, like a director's panel. We do try to pack in as much as we can, and it's only like a couple hour commitment, and it'll be virtual. So it's definitely like a very low risk opportunity to just learn a lot of information about us. If you really want to stick in like kind of, I know Encino is very close to CSUN. So if you're interested, there is a tax internship available there next spring. And then we also have an Oxnard office as well. I know that some of you come from more of that Central Coast area as well. And so we do have an audit and tax internship there for the springtime as well. So that's a very unique one where you do get exposure to both as well. And so all these opportunities are posted on Handshake, and the deadline is actually today. And so I know that you guys probably have midterms and a lot going on, but hey, if you want to jump off the presentation after this and apply for any of our positions, you're more than welcome to. But we are cutting off that deadline for the 24th. So make sure you apply. And then if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me as well. All right, so we're going to get started with the main topic of emotional intelligence. And so feel free, Rachel, to take it away.
So today we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence and what that means, as well as how we can apply that not only in the workforce, but just to our lives in general. So does anyone want to share what emotional intelligence means to them?
Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, I saw someone raise their hand.
Is it Nanelia?
Yes, it's me.
Oh, yes.
So for me, emotional intelligence is to know my emotions for different situations. Even it is possible that I never experienced that situation before, but I have to imagine the situation and then think how I will react to that situation. So let's say if it is a workplace that I never been to, I have to know like, okay, how I have to communicate with my coworkers and the boss, so I can be prepared.
Yeah, so like being empathetic and understanding of others' emotions. That's exactly right. So the definition of emotional intelligence is that it is a type of social intelligence that involves understanding one's own and others' emotions to guide thoughts and actions in a healthy, positive way. So I feel like oftentimes we hear a lot more about IQ as opposed to EQ. So I think this presentation would be a good way for us to learn more about what EQ stands for. So there are 5 attributes to emotional intelligence, and the first one is being self-aware. So understanding your own emotions and then knowing your strength and weakness. And second one is self-regulation. So controlling impulsive feelings and behaviors, as well as managing own emotions in healthy ways. So an example I can think of when I hear first these 2 attributes, it's that, right now I'm in the middle of a busy season, and there's definitely a lot of deadlines coming up, so that can definitely cause some stress. So how do I understand first, oh, this is a stressful time? And then how do I de-stress? And so once I de-stress, I don't, lash out on people around me. So this could mean that either taking a quick mental break when I have been working for really long hours, or just on the weekend, go out. I mean, it's a little hard right now because of the pandemic, but maybe go on a quick walk and then, kind of just let myself enjoy the environment as opposed to, thinking about busy season in general. And then the third one is being motivated. So taking initiative and adapting to changing circumstances, as well as what we talked about earlier, being empathetic of others. And for these 2, an example I could think about is for the new hires that just came in, they don't get to experience what we got to experience. So everything is remote, and they're training, they're doing their work as well as having client interaction all virtual. So being empathetic toward them, understanding that this is, something that's difficult. And so how do you motivate them to tell them that, hey, you're doing a great job, and to give constructive criticism as well. And then the last one is social skills, developing and maintaining good relationship. So for this one, as auditor, we go out a lot to our clients, and during lunchtime, a lot of times we would go out and have lunch with the client. So they're humans too. We don't all just talk about accounting all the time. So a lot of times we go out and then we talk about, hey, how's your family doing, or like current events. So through this, we get to build and maintain good relationship with them. So yeah, these are the 5 attributes.
Great, thanks, Rachel. And then, so when you think about emotional intelligence, and then, how that can apply in the workplace, and I know Rachel gave some great examples, but when you kind of like look at it from like an overall sense, day-to-day challenges and frustrating situations, those are just kind of like it is going to be a reality of the workplace, no matter where you are. Oftentimes you are going to experience those stressful deadlines and projects like busy season, like Rachel was talking about. Or you might also be spending a lot of time with like your colleagues or clients that maybe have different, types of personalities that are different from yours that may clash with yours and maybe your different work style. I'm sure you all maybe have had some experiences like this before. And even like if a teammate may not be contributing their fair share, that can be a stressor as well in the workplace. As well as, maybe you're working on a project and or like a return, for example, and you receive constructive feedback that maybe you don't necessarily agree with. And so there's a lot of different situations and challenges that you do experience in the workplace. And so it kind of begs the question of, well, how do you handle those? How do you respond to those situations? And so, in full transparency, it can be very easy to act impulsively and emotionally at first. Maybe you take something very personally and maybe it kind of hits a little closer to home for you. But I think before you kind of act it out in those kind of those ways, maybe just try to check in with yourself first, ask those questions. Why is this upsetting me? Is this something that might change? Is this something that I can change? Is it out of my control? Am I understanding all sides to the situation? Like you may be presented with something, but is that the reality of the situation, of the full picture of what's going on? And, if you respond a certain way, how might this affect the situation? It's a lot of questions to ask yourself in the moment, but it's always good to practice these things. And I think one of the important things that I always like to stress is, you can't change others. And I think that's hard. It's a hard reality that I think a lot of us, especially if you work with like a difficult personality, you might want them to change, but the reality is you can't change them, but you can change how you react to the situation. And you also, it's also just good to understand that there may be unknown factors there influencing the situation. Maybe this person is having an especially hard day because something happened in their home life and it's causing them to act out. And I think it's also okay too and totally valid that if you need to step away for a second, that's totally fine. I know I've needed to, get up and just like take a quick little walk, 5-minute walk, just to kind of clear your head, and that's totally fine, especially if you are having an especially rough day as well. And I think, like Rachel mentioned, I think there's a lot of emphasis on the IQ, intelligence quotient, but like the IQ, that can be improved over time, and the same can be said for emotional intelligence. And I think not everyone kind of looks at it in that way, but emotional intelligence is actually a skill, and being able to understand your emotions as well as others' emotions. It might take time, but it is something that can be improved over time if you're putting in that effort. And if you think about it, each scenario or each challenge that you experience, whether it's in the workplace or in school or in your personal life, there's always some sort of learning opportunity that comes out of it. Maybe it was something that you're like, oh, I shouldn't have responded that way. Or, oh, maybe I should have asked this, to them. These are all things that, if you kind of reflect back on it a little bit, that's going to help you move forward in the future and either not make those kind of similar kind of fumbles that maybe you thought was like a fumble, but it helps you learn from those situations and apply them to other future ones. And so just remaining consistent with that kind of high emotional intelligence, it does take time and practice. And so, overall, I think when you kind of just look at when you're moving forward in your career, having that well-rounded approach is so important. Being emotionally intelligent just allows you to have that balanced approach. And so part of it is also, you know, it allows you to, you know, be a better like active listener, where, you know, you're in trainings and meetings and, you know, you're actively listening to what they're saying. Also, when you're building and maintaining your workplace relationships, it helps when you can like lend that compassionate ear to someone who's having a bad day. Maybe they made some mistakes there and they just need a little bit of comfort from their coworker. And it's also just important to know how to adapt, how to be flexible and be resilient in challenging situations. And like I said, no one kind of just wakes up and is like, I am resilient in everything. These are things that definitely take time and take experiences to kind of reach that stage. And then Rachel.
Okay, so now we're going to go through a scenario together and see how we could practice emotional intelligence based on the scenario. So you've been randomly assigned for a class group project. You get along great with most of your group, set some meeting times and get to work. But Morgan doesn't respond to group chats, hasn't shown up to meetings, and has not been contributing the same quantity and quality of work as the rest of the group. You are growing increasingly frustrated. So would anyone like to share how you could potentially react if you're not practicing emotional intelligence?
So if you're not practicing, okay, so probably react aggressively towards Morgan.
Yeah.
Just tell him you have to get your act together and do it.
Yes, so like what Mariana mentioned, if you're not practicing emotional intelligence, you could lash out and potentially regret it later for, you know, being mean to your classmate. And you could also assume, you know, the worst of the person, even though you haven't taken the time to understand why Morgan hasn't been showing up. And there could be like a personal reason, you just never know. So what next step could you take while practicing emotional intelligence?
Well, maybe first reach out to him and ask how is everything, because as you said, it might be something personal in his life and he's just not able to participate.
Right.
And then if he responds, remind him that we have an assignment due, something like that.
Yes. Yes, so reach out to Morgan, you know, ask if he's doing okay and if he needs any help and like what's a realistic deadline or responsibility that he could take on given his situation. And I actually do have something that happened exactly like this during college, where there was an accounting project and, you know, one of the members just was not contributing, was not showing up. So we had reached out to him and then asked him like why, you know, he hasn't been coming to the meetings. And he said that it's because, you know, he has other workloads and he just does not have the time. So we're like, okay, we understand. So given your situation, do you think you can help out on this smaller piece of the project instead? And, you know, he agreed and he showed up and then we were able to get the project done on time. So that's just like an example of how you can approach it through practicing emotional intelligence.
Great, thanks, Rachel. And I'm sure you all can kind of relate to that too. I think a lot of you have probably been in like a very similar situation with group projects. I know group projects is, they're always everyone's favorite. And so, you know, hopefully that's also helpful when you just kind of consider the emotional intelligence piece in that. So when we kind of like take a step back on looking at, you know, why is this important? Why is emotional intelligence important? Why are we talking about this? You know, it does provide a balance in your life because like I mentioned earlier, this isn't just, even though we're applying it to the workplace mostly in this presentation, but it really does affect multiple areas, you know, your school and your work performance, you know, your physical and your mental health, as well as your relationships, which can be outside of work. And so, you know, having like in general, like when you kind of look at it in a different way, you know, having high intelligence, like IQ, you know, it may help you achieve success, but it's your emotional intelligence that's going to kind of help to manage the stress and other challenges that come in life, which are just inevitable. There's going to be stress that comes into your life. And so really working on that. And, you know, it's not, like I mentioned, always easy to kind of sit there with yourself and have a little good reflection time. And you're like, so self, what did you learn about that situation? How could you have reacted differently? It's still good to practice those, and you only kind of build on that over time. And so, you know, overall, emotional intelligence does help to relieve stress. You can communicate effectively with others. You can empathize, help to overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict between people. And it really does help to build those stronger relationships where you can succeed in kind of all areas of your life, whether it's school, work, and your personal goals. And that's our presentation. We cut it a little short just so that we wanted to make sure that you guys had time to ask us questions, since I know that this is valuable time for you guys. And so feel free, this is my email if you do want to email me anything in particular, any questions you might have. But aside from this, we are definitely open for questions if you guys have any.
Thank you so much, Hailey and Rachel, for your presentation. I really like your pictures for making your point in the presentation. Well, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask, or you can type it in the chat.
And then also, if you guys haven't seen it already in the chat, feel free to sign in as well to let us know you stopped by. But yeah, if anyone has a question, feel free to, you know, write something in the chat, or you can like raise your hand.
I have a question about the recruiting process this semester. So how is it going to be? Could you just cover a little bit the timeline of the events and the interview process? What should we expect there?
Yeah, so in general, like I mentioned earlier, the deadline to apply for positions is today. So I know that's not a ton of time, but feel free, if you are interested in any positions, feel free to apply today. So as far as like the rest of the kind of process goes for us, it's usually like a two-step interview process. So usually if you are chosen to move forward, you usually do a first round interview with like a senior type level, senior associate. And then if you move on from there, you usually interview with some managers as the final round interview with the, like if you're interviewing with the LA office, for example, you would interview with like LA managers. And I know it can sound intimidating, but I promise everyone's really nice. They also recognize that it's nerve-wracking for you guys, but everyone's very approachable and very easy to talk to in the interview process.
That's really nice. So for the application tonight, what do we need to have ready if we want to apply?
Yeah, so you can apply on Handshake, and so feel free to, you know, submit your resume as well as an unofficial transcript, and you can apply to multiple positions, but just because we tend to kind of separate the interviews by like the type of the type of position, we do recommend that you apply for the position you want the most, because that will tell us which kind of interview to put you in if you move forward. So I do recommend you can apply, like I said, to as many as you want, but try to apply to the one that you want the most.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And a cover letter is not required either. I know you guys.
That's really good, because sometimes
we get questions on that, and we want to alleviate a little bit of stress about that. So don't worry about submitting a cover letter if that helps. I know sometimes that's like a stopping point where you're like, we have to do a cover letter. I don't know if I want to apply anymore. And that's, we're trying to alleviate that on you guys. So no cover letter is needed.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah, you can provide one if you want, but not a requirement.
I have a question. You guys had an amazing presentation. I know I personally learned a lot, and I know you guys kind of covered this, but I just wanted to hear from both of your point of view. I kind of have my own answer to this question, but I'm really interested to hear what other people think. So we just talked about emotional intelligence and how you can apply in different ways, but in your opinion, do you think emotional intelligence can be taught? Maybe in like a class, or just if people weren't aware of it, is it something that can be taught, or is it something you just have to experience and learn from it yourself?
That's a really good question, and it's an interesting one too when you kind of think about it. I feel like it could be a little bit of both. I mean, I think in general, from at least like from my experience, you know, increasing my emotional intelligence over time, I do feel like a lot of it was based on the experiences that you do kind of go through and what you learn from those. I think those probably help the most, but I feel like there's probably ways that that can help you along the way if you do want to have like a sit down class. I'm sure that they exist where they kind of maybe like ask yourself like those questions, like I mentioned, like maybe they give you like kind of like tidbits on ways to react to situations. But I think there's a difference between like learning something versus doing something. And I think when you actually do it, sometimes that helps cement it in your head a little bit better. It's kind of the same, I guess, if you wanted to correlate it with like school and work opportunities. You know, you're in your accounting courses and you're learning all the fundamentals of it. But when you actually get into the workplace, it might be a little different because each situation is a little bit different. And so even though you have that foundation, which might help, which it does help, that foundation helps, it's not until you're experiencing it that it helps to solidify it a little bit more. I hope that makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. Thank you.
And I didn't know if you wanted to add anything, Rachel, or.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a little bit of both too. Like you can learn something all you want, but if you don't really, you know, try it or like learn how to apply it, then it's just coming in one year and going out the next. So yeah, I feel like one way that you know, I feel more connected to my emotions is through journalism. So you know, when I'm feeling that there's a lot of stress, maybe I can just like write it all out, and then that'll help me, you know, understand my emotions better. So I think that's also one way to stay more connected to your emotions.
Definitely. And I know some people, they actually like journal every day, or like maybe they meditate. It sounds like I know it's like a very LA thing to hear about. But I think it does, like, even though I don't personally do it, I know like for those that do it, it does help them to just get in touch with that self-awareness piece. That's part of emotional intelligence, just being aware of like your own emotions. And I think that like journaling, like Rachel mentioned, is a great way to kind of channel how you're feeling and understand them. Anyone else have any questions, either about the presentation or CBIZ or about just like accounting in general? Well, I have a question for Rachel. Can you share with everyone like why you chose audit and also like why you chose CBIZ?
Yes, so I chose audit because I personally am just not a tax person. Like I did VITA in school, and I mean, it was very helpful to learn about, but I just can't see myself doing that as a career. So I did an internship for audit, and you know, I really love that we get to go out to the client side, interact with them, and then work in like a team setting. So it's almost like a group project. And I chose CBIZ because during Meet the Ferns, I actually like made my round around all the different tables, and I had like locked my eye with one of the professional there that was from CBIZ, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I have to go talk to that person now. And when I talked to her, I feel like, wow, this is like the atmosphere is very different from some of the other firms that I talked to. Like it's a lot more easier to talk to them and feel more engaged and more not as nervous. So from there, I decided to apply, and then I felt the same way throughout the whole interview process, and here I am.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, and I think in general, I think that really rings true with like a lot of our professionals. We definitely want to make sure that you feel like as supported as possible, and everyone is pretty easy to get along with. And we try to make sure like you're kind of built up for success when you first start with us. Like if you do join us, you're automatically paired with like a career advisor who's usually like a manager level or above, and so they help you in your goals. And you meet with them pretty frequently to talk about your goals and how you're progressing. And we also pair you with like a peer contact who's kind of like a buddy. And they also are there to ask like all the day-to-day questions that you're like, is this a stupid question? I'm just going to ask my buddy here. And they kind of help in that transition. So I think that's definitely like a theme of us. We really want to make sure you feel supported and taken care of as well. Anyone, let's see. I got a question in the chat. How does the firm push for emotional intelligence to be practiced within the workplace? I'm guessing this is applying directly for CBIZ. So one of the things that we do offer is we offer a couple different things. From like more of like a knowledge standpoint, we do offer, different workshops on like ways to, maybe it might not be emotional intelligence as the topic, but there might be elements of that, of what makes up emotional intelligence. So we do offer different workshops, different kind of events that you can participate in to get that knowledge base. But also if there is, any, like for example, any potential conflicts that ever come up, whether it's in like your work group or anything like that, the managers really make it like a safe space to like there's an open door policy where you can talk to any manager or even like director. They know you personally, and they want to make sure that if there's anything that's going on, that you can have a space to talk about it. And so it's nice because you can talk about it with the manager, and they can ask you questions like, well, how would you like to respond? Which then makes you think about your actions and how you're going to respond then. And it's a good practice to be with those managers and have that open door policy and those kind of conversations. And I didn't know if you wanted to add anything, Rachel, if like anyone from your group has like helped support that kind of emotional intelligence piece, like an audit.
Yeah, like the partner at our LA office is always emphasizing that, she has an open door policy, and like if you ever need to talk to her about anything, just shoot her email and then we'll set up a call right away. So I feel like I always really appreciate that piece, knowing that, she knows you personally and she cares about how you feel, and she just wants the best for you. Yeah,
and especially I think you're talking about Kelly, right?
Yeah.
So Kelly O'Neill is actually one of our attest practice leaders. She oversees all of audit in California, and she sits out of the LA office. And the fact that she's so willing to, make time, to talk to associates on what's going on, I think that really speaks volumes about like the leadership. And she knows knows everyone personally in the office. And so it's definitely something that we're proud of as well. Any other questions?
You mentioned, Haley, that you have a lot of volunteer events. Could you just cover that a little bit? How often do you do it, and what kind of events do you do with the firm?
Yeah, so each office is a little bit different. So overall, we have what's called like our CBIZ Cares program. And so it's all about different volunteer events. And so each office has like their own CBIZ Cares leader, which organizes the different events. I will say that we definitely did more events prior to the pandemic, whether that was, like a beach cleanup. I know that some offices have worked with, oh my gosh, it is escaping me now. Like worked with like homeless shelters, like whether it's like creating like little bags of food, or helping out with like animal shelters or like a retirement home. And I think the nice thing is that because each office kind of has like its own leader, they can take suggestions from people of, oh, what do they want to do? And it helps to create those events then for the future. I think one of the nice things too is that if you do come on with us full time, we actually offer 3 paid days of time to go volunteer. So I think for me, that kind of shows like, I think CBIZ does have like a big emphasis and priority on volunteering, which to me was really important when I was, even though I'm not an accounting professional, I'm a campus recruiter, but even I thought that that was really valuable for me, because I always look at, you know, where are firms kind of investing like their money and where are those kind of priorities going? And so between that, our CBIZ Cares program, and we have also like an environmental sustainability program. And we also have a CBIZ Women's Advantage program where it's all about empowering women to succeed in business as well.
That sounds really great. So you said you had more events before the pandemic, obviously. So what do you expect to happen after the pandemic is over? Do you think auditors and tax professionals will go back to the office, or it will be more of a hybrid approach to their work?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think like it's been more and more like, you know, like top of mind. I think that we've learned a lot in the pandemic where, you know, people are productive at home and people can work remote. And so I will say just in general, like with where kind of our status is right now, we do let people go into the office right now if they want to, because we understand everyone's situation is a little bit different. If somebody maybe like their home life isn't conducive to working from home, maybe working in the office is better. And so we, when I've had to go into the office a couple times, I see like the same people working in the office, just because I think that's just what works best for them. And for some people, maybe they haven't stepped inside the office since March, and that's okay too. I think as long as you're being productive, and we make sure to check in with everybody to make sure if like they need anything, like if they need any extra equipment. We've made sure to be pretty open about that. We're also pretty cognizant of, you know, anyone who has like children, for example, that's a whole animal on its own, and being able to work from home with children, especially young school-aged children. And so when we look at like past the pandemic and what that might look like, I think we're still deciding on what's going to happen there. Obviously, it's not just going to be a stampede back to the office, but there is some value in being in the office, especially as like a new person, like new to the team. Like Rachel was mentioning earlier, you know, it's a little bit more challenging when you're kind of coming in fresh to a firm and you don't know anybody. And, you know, of course, like, we are pretty connected. We, you know, with video chatting, text chatting, like we use Microsoft Teams a lot. So we're able to stay connected in that way, but it's not really the same, you know, as like bumping into someone in the hallway and starting a conversation there. There's definitely a little bit of a cultural shift in that way. So I think it's definitely going to be on a case-by-case basis, but we're not totally against people working remotely. It's definitely going to be on based on everyone's circumstances.
It's really nice to hear that you are very flexible, especially with people who need to actually go to the office now. It's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will emphasize too, we're very safe about, for those who are going to the office, we do take it very seriously. We have, you know, we practice social distancing. We tell everyone you got to wear a mask in the common areas. And so, and we also have other kind of procedures in place too. But yeah, we try our best to be flexible. Any other questions or anything you guys are curious about?
Please ask questions if anyone has any.
Or feel to drop them in the chat if you guys don't want to unmute yourself.
Actually, I do have a question for Rachel. So I'm just curious, since you're an audit associate, was there ever a point in your life where someone has told you that accounting isn't for you, or audit isn't for you, or when you started your internship, someone told you, oh, you do that, like you seem lost, like probably this isn't for you, or did you like overcame that but then you show like everyone, oh look, like, you know, this is like something I really want to do, and it's like something that like it's just like like someone saying to you like, this isn't for you, but in the end you overcame that. Have you ever had like that kind of moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't had anyone told that to me, but I've felt that way myself without someone telling me that. And it was definitely like my first year starting here. I mean, I feel like I came in like, yes, we learned about everything we need to know for accounting through, you know, school, but actually applying that on your job, like during your job, doing fieldwork is very different. And I feel that a lot of times I'm constantly asking questions, and that's okay because it's more so expected that you would ask questions as a first year, because first you're not used to how all the software works. You're not used to, you know, the client that you're on, the industry. So it's expected that you do ask questions, and all the people that are helping you are very nice, and they know that you have questions because they were once in the same boat as well. So they always take the time to make sure that you understand, and that you feel comfortable doing what you're doing. So I think after knowing that I'm in this safe place to ask questions, I start to feel that, oh, okay, I start to connect the dots eventually as I work on more things. And then now I feel that I am more comfortable working as an auditor and just in accounting in general.
Great question. Any other questions?
Yes, it looks like we have a time for a couple more questions. So if anyone is still thinking of asking something, please do.
And Rachel, can you talk a little bit more on like how big are your like audit teams, and like what typically happens when you go to like a client, and how has it been different in the pandemic?
Yes, so it depends on the size of the client. So you could have more people on your team, but at the least, there's usually, you know, a manager and then a senior and associate. That's like the minimum. So usually around at least 2, but 3 or 4 would be the bigger size. And then before pandemic, we would have field works where we actually go out to the client and stay there and work the whole day, so that way, you know, if we have questions, we can talk to our team. We're all in the same conference room, and then we can go talk to the client directly as opposed to having to email back and forth. So now, because of the pandemic, it's a little harder to do that. We don't really go out anymore. So instead, we set up like, you know, daily calls with our team, and then we will have maybe a few calls with our client, and then we just set up a schedule, and then we will ask all our questions then. So that's like a little difference between like, you know, going in person as opposed to having everything remote.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I guess, oh, sorry, Mariana, did you have something?
No, I was going to say if there's no questions, we can wrap it up. But if you have something to say, please do.
Yeah, I guess like my last question for Rachel would be, what's like a piece of advice that you could give to these students in the recruiting process, and any advice you can give to them?
Well, I think everyone's just showing up to, you know, to these kind of presentation is already a great step. So good job, everyone, for, you know, and thank you for joining us. I would say to talk to as many people or professionals as you can, and, you know, stay connected with them. And yeah, I think that would be like the biggest advice, because, you know, you never know who you end up working with in the future. And so, you know, just talking to people, you open up different doors.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having us here. We're really excited that we got the opportunity to talk to you guys.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. We are going to take a quick picture, like a screenshot. If anyone wants to turn the cameras on, please